So good morning and welcome to Women Who Rock Investigates. And so today we're going to be talking about commodities. And of course, we all know that there's been some things that's been going on. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about drought and what have you in America. And a lot of things affect a lot of Americans, inflation and different things of that type of nature. So today we're going to be talking about commodities. And this is very, very important, especially dairy. So if there's a storm that goes on, or if there's a catastrophic event that goes on, if it's bad weather, the first thing that the consumer does is they run to the grocery store for a gallon of milk. Forget about everything else. And so so that's what we're going to be talking about today, the dairy products of commodities, that they are so essential. Sometimes individuals may feel that, well, it's not that important and what have you. Yes, that's the first thing that we look for is when we go to the grocery store is a gallon of milk, whether we have children or not. Milk goes with anything. Cheese goes with crackers. So we're going to be talking with an expert on today. She is a farmer. She's a specialist also and spokesman for Cabot Creameries. And we welcome to the broadcast this morning, Miss Jenni Tilton-Flood. So good morning.
Good morning, and thank you so much for having me on. And you're right. We think of milk as a staple. We have a joke. You're going to make a milk sandwich. You buy that bread, you buy that milk, and you obviously get that toilet paper. And you have everything you need to hunker down during whatever catastrophe is coming your way. And I think that's where we take we become accustomed to it. Staples sometimes are things we take for granted, and when they're not there, we really are lost. And as a consumer, I feel that too, because I run to the store to stock up before storms as well.
Absolutely. So now we're going to get into several different items and products that Cabot Creamery serves to the public. So, but first, before we do that, we want the audience. You're a second time guest. You were on with us. I don't know, 2019 or 20 or what have you, but things change, and so we want to learn a little bit more about your hair. It seems like it's a little shorter too. Seems like you cut your hair since the last time you've been on the broadcast, so that's okay. So tell us a little bit about you, Jenni. Tell us a little bit about you. And I know that Cabot Creameries is a family tradition as to what you all provide for the public, and probably has been providing it for decades or centuries. So tell us a little bit about you and your intake and role and responsibilities daily, so that the audience can be able to learn a little bit about what your role is.
Sure. So my name is Jenni Tilton-Flood, and I am a dairy farmer right here in Clinton, Maine, which is in the far northeast corner of the United States. Most of our state is bordered by Canada, actually. Just a very small portion of it is bordered by New Hampshire. But we are part and parcel of a really long tradition in this family of putting milk on our neighbors' tables. Myself, I'm actually the first generation on both sides of my family that actually wasn't born on a farm. I'm part of that population that grew away from farms. And it only took me 2 decades to find my way back to a farm. And the farm that I belong to through marriage with my husband, Dina, is, we're 3 generations currently on the farm, 6 families, 21 family members. 11 of them work daily on the farm with 31 other employees caring for our 3,000 plus dairy cows, 1,700 of which are milked every single day, 3 times a day. That's a 10-minute shift for each of those cows, 3 times a day. And we produce around 17,000 gallons of milk for our neighbors each and every day. And it's a long family tradition here in the area. My husband's family's been doing it for hundreds of years. They are on land that they've been on for a couple centuries. That land was not given to them. It was not purchased. It was stolen away from the Wabanaki. So we're on unceded land here. So we have a real conscious effort towards making sure that what we do here makes a difference and does a good difference. And that's one of the reasons we are farmer owners with Cabot Creamy Cooperative, a farmer-owned co-op encompassing 600 family farms and farm families throughout New England and New York. And we have been a co-op for almost 100 years. 1919, we celebrate our 100th anniversary as a co-op. And this month is actually, amongst all the other amazing things going on this month and meaningful celebrations, this is co-op month, celebrating cooperatives and the power that they put in, they infuse, and they drive and empower within their communities.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot to unpack. Wow. Okay. Wow, well stated. Okay, so on a daily day basis, what is your role that when you get up and you go into work is what you're going to probably be doing as soon as the broadcast is completed. So kind of what to take us a little bit through your day as to how you see the management functions. And then also you're a spokesperson, media spokesperson for Cabot Creamers as well.
So my day is a little not it's a little different than what people may think. I have been before the person who gets up and does the chores, feeds the calves and sits in a tractor and works the fields. At this point in my life with two grown children, I'm more of a support person for the folks that are doing the day-to-day milking of cows and machinery and equipment work. I like to say that I feed the people that do that. And I also deal with a lot of the paperwork. When we think about family farms and farm families, one of the things we don't really think about while we're thinking that it's a way of life, we don't think about it's a way to make a living. So we don't really think about that it's a business. So there's a lot of paperwork when it comes to business. Small business owners know this, that they are up against it, trying to be in all the places. And luckily, with a large family here, we can delegate that work out. So for me, what I handle a lot is our nutrient management plans and our regulatory compliance. That means I keep track of where our cow poop goes and what it does for our earth and how we feed our soil with it. I also talk to the public a lot. I work within schools. I welcome folks to the farm. I do a lot of legislative and policy advocacy, not just on behalf of our farm and agriculture, but on behalf of our rural community and the people that live here. There are a lot of people that go into making sure that food gets from farm to table. And a lot of times those folks are marginalized. Someone has to speak up for them. And I really take it seriously when I speak up for the people that we work with. So sometimes you'll find me writing op-eds or talking with our congressional representation or testifying in front of legislative committees. And I also feel it's important for us as farmer owners to be a part of our cooperative and our cooperative governance and betterment. And that's why I'm co-chair of our Sustainable Farms Committee. I represent dairy farmers from the state of Maine on national boards as well. And I work with legislative and education committee within our co-op. And as you mentioned, I am a farmer spokesperson for our co-op. That means that when I have something good to say, I have something proud to say, that I am willing and able to step up to the plate and talk about it. And when I need to advocate on behalf of our brand and the people associated with our brand, I will do that. And Cabot Creaming Cooperatives is such a wonderful co-op that it actually takes so seriously the community that it depends upon and the community it serves at the same time. So my advocacy can be for things such as Meals on Wheels or other nonprofits and co-ops that work so hard to make sure our communities are strong. So when I'm speaking for Cabot, I am speaking really for people who matter.
Okay, okay, that is so awesome. You know, it was something that you said that kind of struck me a little bit, which I think is very, very vital and important to the community, and that is that you allow individuals to be able to come on to the farm as well, which is so important. So, take for instance, if something happens or what have you, like a, I don't know, you know, we've had conflicting stories years in the past with cows and different things, and then the company or the public don't hear anything about it until it get to the news. So it's very,
Right.
very important. I like that strategy, how you allow the people to be able to, you know, I'm pretty sure you screen them first though, but you allow them to be able to come to the actual farm to be able to see what's going on, what you all do on a perhaps a daily basis. And that also can be able to help the community to feel a little bit more comfortable about your product and brand as well. So I like that. I like that. So I guess I have another question. I was thinking about this more. I said I'm going to ask her so she can, so the audience can be able to get a little bit more information as to the provision. And I know that you provide milk in different states and what have you. But what about virtually? Is there any powdered milk? Because here in the South, I think our leading milk producer is Prairie Farms. And so I'm like, oh, it just seems it. And I went to the website and just, and I went to the website before and it looks so good. And I'm like, I wonder, do they do any virtual supermarkets?
Right. So, so Prairie Farms actually is another farmer-owned co-op. So it's similar to Cabot. And we do offer our products. You can visit cabotcheese.coop online and you can see all of our products. We even have a product finder that allows you to type in your zip code and see what products are near you and where you can find them. And you will find them in a lot of national chains. And mostly for Cabot, we make not just the world's best cheese, and I say that with a humble brag, but we have
Wow.
won every major taste award out there. But we also offer cultured products, including butter, yogurt, sour cream, cream cheese, and we do have our whey protein powder as well. And what we do is we try and make sure that we have these products from our New England and Northeast farms available throughout the country in outlets that represent our brand well. And we try and do it in a sustainable way. So while you can't necessarily find us in every single town outside of New England, it's a good bet that if you have a large box store that can I say brand names? Can I say store names on here?
You can,
Oh,
yes.
yeah, so you can most generally find a Cabot product in any Walmart throughout the country. I know that whenever I'm traveling, I can trust that if I go into a Walmart or to a Whole Goods, I will be able to find at least one or two examples of the products that come from our family farms and farm families. And also throughout the Midwest and the Southeast, Publix and Kroger's are also some of the places where we can find our products. And throughout the Northeast, we really are sort of the center in a lot of dairy cases and deli cases. So, and as far as buying it online, currently you can. Currently you can go to dakinfarm.com and you can purchase our products. But just between you and I, don't tell anybody else. Towards the end of the year, there will be the opportunity for you to purchase the world's best cheddar online through our Cabot cheese website.
Oh,
But don't tell
wow.
anybody.
That's now see, I like that. So it's a lot of different options that the customer and the consumer can be able to I love that. I love that. I love that. So we're going to be looking up some things today.
Yes.
So Jenny, we know since inflation, and we want to talk about that, about the inflation and how it may or may have not reconstructed Cabot Creameries, because the last time that you were on the show, we were talking about how the farmers had to go in there and they were just literally emptying their tanks, their milk tanks and what have you, for because we had some issues that were going on back then. But now we have the inflation, the rise of
Right.
inflation. So, and of course, individuals, they are concerned about that. They're concerned about all of their necessities like eggs, butter, cheese, and milk that perhaps they want to stay at a minimum low price. So talk to us a little bit about that as to whether the inflation has affected the cost with Cabot Creameries for your customers.
Right. So I don't think there is any food or any product out there that hasn't been affected by inflation. And a lot of that inflation has been fed over the past 2 or 3 years. You know as well as I do the challenges that the COVID pandemic has caused. And
Right.
add to that the issues with Ukraine and the invasion by the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. So we
Mhm.
have a lot of stressors on all of our supply lines. We have pressures on the people who do the work. We
Mhm.
have pressures on the people who are trying to put food on the table. So you add all that up and yes, there are issues and it does matter. And for people like us consumers, when we walk into the store, our dollar is not stretching as far as it was. And it feels like we're working even harder just to get that dollar into our pocket. So
Right.
it's an added burden. And what has happened is inflation has affected each and every food product.
Okay.
Dairy has also been affected on the retail side. The
Okay.
cost of producing this food continues to go up. And I think what's really important for people to know, especially here in the US, and I
Mhm.
think people understand this, is we have this benchmark of cheap food and a policy of
Yeah.
cheap food. And it doesn't mean that the food is produced cheaply. It doesn't mean that the food is not worth a lot. It means that it is affordable, accessible, and available. And that's our benchmark. And
Okay.
what has happened over the past 3 years is we have come to realize that that cheap food policy has not been equitable for everyone. It has really only applied to those with disposable income.
Right.
And the profitability of cheap food is really beneficial to those who have extra money in their pocket. Now that there are many more people without that extra money in the pocket, they're realizing how these real costs add up and how they bite into what we're able to buy and bring home. On the farmer side, we're experiencing all those costs. So everything we do costs more. Nothing is cheaper to do. It's every business is facing this. Everything costs more. It costs more to do our job. It costs more to make sure we are providing for our employees and our coworkers. It costs
Mhm.
more to get fuel onto the farm. It costs more to get all the inputs. And added to that is the fact that it costs even more just because we have these shortages on top of just natural increases.
Mhm.
And then once we get it to the plant, we are also dealing with shortages of labor, shortages of availability, shortages of the product and packaging, and it all adds up. So we've got
Right.
time, and that costs money. We've got expenses of supplies and shortages of supply, and that costs money. And
Right.
then on top of that, we do have the inflation that is being experienced globally and worldwide,
Right.
and that is adding to the cost burden that you see at the store level. So
Mhm.
yeah, Cabot is not unique, and we didn't get a buy, and we didn't get a special exemption from this. But we work really, really hard to make sure that, due to our belief in our farmer owners and our belief in serving our communities, we've worked really hard to make sure that we're balancing all of it, so
Okay.
that in order to make sure we have a quality product that is on the shelf at an affordable price, that we are not short shrifting the people who made that possible. Um, you know, it's a
Okay.
tough balance.
Okay. Great. Great. So, of course, since the last time that you were on the show, I have to continue to reflect back to that. Um, I think we may or may not was in our early stage of the pandemic. So we have been wrestling in America with supply and demand. Supply and demand. So we want to talk about that as far as Cabot Creameries. We're not talking about anyone else, not Prairie Farms or anybody else.
Mhm.
How has that beefed up your production of trying to provide all of these essentials for consumers? Because even with Kroger here in the South, they have it has been difficult for them and other companies to be able to keep up with the supply for the consumers. And of course, as we stated before, milk is a huge commodity. If the weatherman gets on the show and he says, "Well, we're going to have sleet tonight," you best better believe milk is flying off the shelf. That's going to be the first thing that they're going to look for: milk, eggs, cheese, butter, and bread.
Yeah.
So we want to talk about that as how this has caused the production workforce for Cabot Creameries to be able to increase so that the consumers have what they need on the shelves.
Okay. So, and that's a really big concern. And I think for everybody, especially for a farmer like me, that the whole point of doing what we do is not just to make our living, but because we feed people. And one
Right.
of the most tragic things that happened over the past few years is when milk that we produced and worked so hard for on the farm wasn't able to make it to the
Mhm.
processing and bottling plants, and therefore not able to go beyond to shelves and to tables. That was frustrating and almost unforgivable for many of us. I will say this, that when it comes to Cabot and it comes to meeting the demands of our consumers and our customers, we do everything in our power to be able to do that. As far as the cows, they're still producing. As far as the farmers, they're still making sure that the next crops in the ground and the cows are cared for and the milk heads down the road. And
Mhm.
at the plant level, where the milk is turned into cheese and the milk is turned into butter and all these amazing products and food, they're doing everything they can to meet that demand. When faced with shortages, whether it's labor and workforce, because of no one was able to send their kids to school, so how do you leave your kids at home if you need to be there? And now we have people who have moved around and maybe you're not living in the places where they used to because they've gone to get other jobs where they can work remotely. Those challenges to workforce do make it more difficult to get the amount of product out the door that we want to get out the door, but we're still managing to find ways to do that. Cabot's really, really invested in developing and maintaining and improving its work culture within the people that are so important to us, that make sure that that product from our farms gets to be good food on people's tables. And then there's faced with challenges of not having the packaging available, whether it's a supply line disruption or perhaps it's even a cessation of production of a key ingredient due to a war. So we have these issues that we're challenged with, but I think by the most part, Cabot has been able to navigate, and I hate to use this word, pivot
Okay.
throughout the last few years and make sure that it communicates well with the people who are representing us as salespeople and our outlets, our retail outlets, making sure they know this is what we can get you. This is what
Okay.
we can provide you. And that's been able to make sure that those things get on there. Have there been supply disruptions? Yes. Have there been hiccups along the way? Yes. But I think it isn't about whether or not those things occur. It's how you handle them. And I've been very proud of the way that our co-op, its management, staff, and farmers have handled it. And with regards to the milk, while Cabot doesn't bottle milk, farmers like I do produce that milk that goes in those gallon jugs that people are seeking all the time. We are in 93% of US households. People who depend upon reach for that gallon of milk, whether they're reaching for lactose free milk or they're reaching for whole milk or skim milk, whatever they're reaching for.
Mhm.
93% of the households have that, and they can depend upon that being there. When there is a scarcity of that product due to a storm or a power outage or something beyond the control of farmers or the people who are bottling it, it can be very scary as a consumer to see that product that you've depended upon so much and
Mhm.
you take as a comfort to not be there. So I think that when these things happen, whether there is a computer problem and a virus or a hacker that or a cybersecurity attack that affects production of milk, which has happened recently in multiple states and nationwide over the past year, that
Mhm.
can shake us to our core. So I think that it is incumbent upon dairy farmers and those of us within the sector and production sector to really make sure that we are doing everything we can to recognize and acknowledge that this is not the world it was last year or a decade
Right.
ago or 100 years ago. And we need to make sure that we protect and secure our food systems. We need to strengthen them. We have to recognize the importance of regional support. And we have to
Right.
make sure that there's a diversity and equity and inclusion when it comes to not just where the food goes, how accessible, available, and affordable it is, but also who are we procuring this food from? Are we making sure that everyone who wants to be a part of this food system is able to meet the standards and is enabled and doesn't encounter barriers? So those are the things that go through my mind every single day. And you just
Mhm.
happen to be the person asked a question, and I found a reason to spill it all out. I hope that's okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, because we heard about well, it was on the news, I think perhaps maybe 5 years or less, where Walmart had went in there and they severed ties with one of their companies that was providing the chicken, for them and what have you. And so these are answers that the consumer, they want. And of course, once this video airs, they're going to be able to get all of the answers that perhaps maybe that they are been inquired about. And so we thank you so much for being open and transparent to be able to share that. So even with the wake of the pandemic and what have you, tell us a little bit about your role. Were you on the front line, jumped on the front line because as we just talked about, supply and demand. So that's one of Kroger's strategies. What they did, they jumped right out there in the media. They did not give the consumer time enough to speculate. They jumped immediately on the problem and said, "Hey, look, we're doing everything we can to be able to rectify this." Kroger's, and I think I think Kroger's is a division also of Fred Meyer's as well. So we want to be able to talk about that as well, as to your frontline role, as to when the pandemic occurred, as to how you were swift to be able to handle that, as to, as far as supply and demand.
So when the pandemic hit and our primary concern was ensuring that the same primary concerns that affect us every single day.
Mhm.
People, cows, and land, land, people, and cows, land, cows, and people, cows, people, and land. Any order, all at the same time. So we had to make sure that we were taking care of that, and with the added restrictions and the fear. There was
Right.
palpable fear,
It
right?
was. It was.
And so we made sure that we were ordering what we needed to protect people. We made sure we were ordering what we needed in case there was a disruption in supply for our everyday needs, and because we're not just dealing with a widget, we're dealing with a creature. We're dealing with the life of a cow, and we want to make sure that it's high quality and there's high welfare, and there's a lot that goes into that. And we have to make sure that the product remains fresh, quality, and safe. And also the people are important. The people that milk these cows and the people that we call family, they're important too, as important as the people who get our product down the road. So yeah,
Right.
so we went into kind of hunkered down mode. It was the kind of the upside of the pandemic was that, guess what? People weren't stopping in every 5 minutes. That made the day go pretty quick, and it
Okay.
made sure that we were able to concentrate on things. Um, but also, we also made sure that there was support. We made sure that if the milk haulers didn't have what they needed to keep themselves safe, we had it in our milk room for them. Take the mask, take the wipes. You take what you need to be safe on your journey with our milk to the bottling plant. And making sure we had our ears open and we listened to people. I got a lot of calls from people when they had troubles finding milk, and I made
Wow.
sure that we located it, and we did a lot of lobbying, we did a lot of support, and we came together as a sector in a lot of ways. Were there some failings? Yes. Were there a lot of successes? Yes. And I think as we moved on and it became more of our everyday, some of the frontline things that went on for me personally was making sure that I was volunteering 2 to 3 times a week at vaccine clinics when those became available,
Okay.
making sure I was filling the roles that were needed for Meals on Wheels and at the senior center in town, because these are the roles that the people who were most affected by this virus could not fulfill anymore. Most of our volunteers in this country are older, and they were
Yeah.
most susceptible. So filling those roles and stepping up, that was my frontline work. As far as Cabot Creamy Cooperative, the safety and security of the people that were working for them and doing the hard work of making sure our products became high quality food for people was
Mhm.
paramount. And we look back now at the idea of washing every surface, high touch areas, and disinfecting them. I did that here. I washed a lot of toilets many times a day. And I think back, maybe I didn't stop the spread of COVID, but I did make sure that people were very healthy.
Right.
But these are the things we did. These are the
Right.
things that we continue to do that we learned from. And when it comes to being on the front line, I think that anybody who got up, faced the day, and made it through, they were on the front lines. And I
Okay.
know that there are those who did so much more. The people that went to work in hospitals and healthcare, and the people who were in law enforcement, the people who were in everyday situations that
Right.
became the front line. We don't think about the restaurant and hospitality industry and how they became the face of providing safe and secure housing for those who were sick or without housing
Okay.
immediately. And that is not something you train for. And yet
Right.
here they were standing up, and it became crucial for our workforce to be able to go to work and know that everything was being done to keep them safe and secure, even if it meant donning all that extra gear, and even if it meant walking in a single file in one entrance and exiting only out of another.
Right.
It can seem overwhelming, it can seem claustrophobic, and it can seem oppressive, but sometimes doing the hard work can feel that way.
Right.
But if it allows us the freedom to continue doing what we're here to do, it's almost empowering in some ways. And I did get the opportunity towards the end of last year and the beginning of this year to actually work in our cheese plants and our cut and wrap plant, filling in spots for labor workforce that we just weren't able to maintain
Right.
through sicknesses and cycles of quarantining and such. And it was liberating, humbling, and empowering all at the same time, knowing and being able to experience just how much passion and commitment goes into making sure that the milk that we work so hard for on our farm is cared for right up to the point that it is put in that box, taped shut, and sent on its way. It was really amazing for me to see how our front line at Cabot was just so finely tuned and so passionate and committed.
Okay, okay, great. Well stated. So let's talk about the seasons of productions. A lot of times, especially such as milk industries, dairy industries, they will of course, see a high peak in production when it comes to, as we were talked about earlier, inclement weather, sleet, snow, avalanche. I guess if you want to say that, because you all offer products in so many other different states. So, talk to us a little bit about that, about the seasons where you see the greatest production, whether it's in the winter, and sometimes we may think that it's in well, I would say it would be in the summer too, because milk makes ice cream and other different um, products as well. So talk to us a little bit about that so that the viewers will know as to when is the highest production and peak season for creamery, Cabot Creameries.
So for our Northeast farms, we have definitely 4 seasons. In other parts of the country it may not be so marked, but winter's a real big thing here.
Okay.
And it can be very, very cold. Our summers, while we do experience higher heat and it's becoming higher heat now, and it's become a little drier, we're still not experiencing the same effects that other parts of the country do. It's so much hotter there. But for us, primarily, we historically, the month of June was not necessarily a higher production month, but because school was let out, there
Yeah.
was more milk available. So that's always been considered really the high point of the year. Um, and but nowadays, I would argue that we are producing what's needed year round, and it really
Okay.
depends upon the demand. So take that ice cream demand. That's
Yeah.
a big deal. And in some parts of the region, it can be if you can't just automatically amp up production, it means you're going to produce more of that and possibly less butter.
Mhm.
So we try and make sure as a co-op that our facilities are gearing up. They're focusing on what that demand will be, so they make sure that they have that supply. One of the other things is the holiday season is coming up, and people do take comfort in baking. So
Mm.
butter purchases, half and half, heavy cream, those high fat things that make such
Mm, mm,
delicious
mm,
food, right?
mm, mm.
Yeah, so those are the types of things where demand increases, and we need to make sure that we have that higher production. And we have to remember that cheese is also something that is very much a seasonal thing. There's a season for every cheese and a cheese for every season, right? But when we think but here's the thing with cheese, we don't make it overnight. Where a
Right.
gallon of milk was produced probably less than 48 hours before you picked it out of the store, that
Okay.
that brick of cheese, especially if you're talking about some of our really fabulous aged cheddar, that could be 18 months to 5 years in the making. So we have to plan ahead. And if you look, since we've been talking about commodities, if you
Mhm.
look at the headlines over the past week, you will see that the butter in storage in this country, because we do store butter and save it up for when
Right.
we need it, that butter in storage is decreasing a little bit. So,
Okay.
and while we have a lot of cheese in storage, our butter's decreasing a little because people are using it. Because what has happened over the past few years is that demand for butter was gone from commercial sales and congregational eating. Think stadiums, think large gatherings, think institutional dining. Over those 2 years of the pandemic, that was
Mhm.
severely limited, so that usage was down. But now it's building back up, coupled with the coming holidays, and you can see more of that butter is going to be wanted and needed. And what that means is, because it's decreasing in amount and storage, that
Mhm.
higher demand, we're working, believe me, we are making more every day. Our cows are producing milk every day and everybody is working, but
Right.
that price is still probably going to go up, and it just because
Yeah.
of the fact that it's in demand.
Right.
And it's and if it's any consolation to the people who are purchasing it in the stores and having to make that difficult decision, and I know it, I do it. I have disposable income. I am a woman of privilege. I cannot deny that, but I still work really hard for my money and I want it to go to good food and I want to make sure that I
Right.
can use it for what I want. But
Yeah.
it is difficult making those decisions. What am I going to spend my money on this week?
Mhm.
Um, it does help to know kind of that when I put my money down for higher priced food, that I know that it costs more to make it too.
Mhm.
It's someone isn't cutting corners, especially if I'm trusting a brand like Cabot. Someone isn't cutting corners to make more money. They really are just trying to make sure that we're maintaining that safety, that quality, and that trust and that loyalty and that people have in our farms, our families, and our co-op.
Okay, okay, awesome, awesome. So talk to us a little bit about I guess the age bracket that you provide your products for as far as milk. We're going to start with the milk. Simply because of the fact, just a little story here in the South, we have like a safari type of tourist type of attraction. And so it attracts a lot of people from a lot of states, and they come and they bring their children and they, kind of basically like Yellowstone Park or what have you, Yellowstone National Park. So, but when the pandemic, and this is right down the street from me, probably about 10 minutes away, when the pandemic hits, uh, and the children could no longer go to school, they had traffic backed up for about 5 miles down the road trying to get those kids in there. So was children a big um, commodity for your commodities at that time when the pandemic hit? Because children at home, they had to stay home probably about what, 9 or 10 months, or probably some of them,
Mhm.
some of the school districts longer than that. Was that something that you all had to beef the production up in regards to that, because they're at home, they, parents, especially me, a cheese and crackers, that's my meal. That can be a meal for me. Milk, cereal, people when they're gaming, they're playing games and what have you on the Nintendos or whatever type of game device that they may have. Children tend to run to milk and cookies first. So tell us a little bit about that, if you can explain that to us a little bit, as to when the pandemic hit and all the children went to the house, as to how the production even went skyrocketing for Cabot Creameries.
So while Cabot Creamery is not necessarily engaged and contracted, or we don't necessarily supply schools with a lot of food for their programs,
Okay.
as a dairy farmer, I will tell you that one of the biggest challenges of making sure that kids that were no longer in school, where they depended upon those school nutrition programs, was
Right.
making sure that not only they had that product and they had that food and they could get it, but making sure they had it in a format that worked for them. So I will use the example of Maine. Here in Maine, I'm sure in your area, school children are used to getting that small carton of
Yeah.
milk,
Yeah.
right? So, but if your school nutrition program is trying to provide 5 lunches for a family, for each child that's in school for the course of the week, packing up those little cartons became difficult. So making the switch and the government providing waivers and allowing processors, bottlers, and school nutrition programs to provide that half gallon or send home that gallon, that packaging that was more useful for the family, made a
Right.
huge difference.
Okay.
So, we always talk about meeting people where they are. When it
Yes.
comes to putting food on the table, we have to make sure we know where the table is and how to set it, right? So if
True.
kids are not able to go to that school and they need to get that meal still, because as much as it pains me, what, 1 in 6 child in this country has no idea where their next meal is coming from. They are food insecure. And the
Mhm.
numbers of adults that are food insecure is also disgusting to me as a dairy farmer and a farmer. And
Okay.
we need to make sure that we are providing them with the food that they can use, the food that they can access, and the food that they can take home in a way that they can do it. We cannot
Right.
expect someone to shift everything about their life just because it's what we want to give them. So when
Right.
it comes, a lot of people will say that, well, what you can do is you can give them all these vegetables and they can make a soup. Well,
Mhm.
that's fine, unless they don't have the ability to make the soup, where they don't have the paraphernalia, they don't have the stove. Assuming that everybody has a stove is a big assumption. They may not have the time. Most of the working poor in this country put a lot of work into their work, you know? And
Right.
when it comes to food insecurity, it's a lot about access, availability, and affordability, but it's a lot about time too. So
Absolutely.
I will get back to your original question. What did we do? We made sure that people got milk in the packages that made sense to them.
Okay.
As soon as we were able to switch, as soon as our processors were able to say, you know what, if you let us give you the half gallon, we can get that to you. And here, as dairy farmers throughout the country, we're going to find ways so that our school nutrition providers can keep that stuff cool. So we're gonna provide grants. We're going to find funding for coolers. We're going to make sure that your mobile delivery, a lot of areas they delivered the meals via bus. They made those stops. So kids, even though they
Right.
weren't going to school, they were out by the bus stop waiting for those meals so that
Right.
they had meals.
Right.
And in a way that the parents could accept them and make sure their kids had them. It is challenging. It
Right.
is very frustrating to make sure that not only that we're giving people what they need, but we're giving it to them the way they need it. And when I say when we're giving, I think I need to make sure that people understand we're not talking about charity. We are
Right.
talking about providing for our community the very things that should be provided. If
Right.
we are making it difficult for people to earn a living in this country, how can we expect them to bring food home?
Right.
So I just, there's so many things that we have to fix in between the farm and the table. I'm just really proud of the fact that my co-op worked very hard throughout the pandemic to make sure that no food went to waste. I personally was involved in making sure that a couple pallets of close-dated large format yogurt found its way to people who needed extra food on the table and extra deliciousness in their life. And we made sure that we made donations where appropriate, and we continue that work. It's not just something that it's over. It's making sure it makes sense for the people who need it. It makes sense for the people who are doing the actual lifting, and it
Mhm.
makes sense for our farmers. Just because you give doesn't mean that someone didn't work for it.
Right, right, absolutely. That makes sense because, of course, on this show, the audience already knows that, and they should know. And if they do not know, they know that everyone that's a guest on the show is a paid feature. So you have to, you know that you have to pay something in order to be able to get something in return. So that's the reason why we wanted to bring you back onto the show is so you can be able to share updates. We wanted to follow up with Cabot Creameries so you can be able to share some updates as to how the audience can be able to continue to learn a little bit more about the process. People are still trying to figure out certain things in regards to supply and demand. And then, of course, with the inflation, you know, the first thing an individual asks, well, why are we going through all of this? Well, it's going to go up if someone else is going up on their, products and services that they're offering to Cabot Creameries. Okay, you push
Right.
me, I got to push you too. Okay, and so yeah, so we just wanted to clarify that, and thank you for bringing that out as well. So we want to talk about your Meals and Wheels on programs, and then we got a couple more questions. And then we'll get into the next segment. And so your Meals on Wheels program. So is this more like a partnership with the Commission of Aging in your particular demographic as to you offering these products? Because as you just already stated, of course, we're not giving milk cartons out to individuals because of they maybe an age group or their what have you and things, but these are provisions that you're making for the public and for the consumer.
So my involvement with the Meals on Wheels program here in our area was as a volunteer, and it is through the agency that actually administers the Meals on Wheel program. It's a
Okay.
fabulous program throughout the country, and almost every region has it. And I was able to be involved with that. Cabot Creamery Cooperative is a big supporter of nonprofits and community organizations. So, in the ways that we can, as a co-op, we have supported them along the way. As a dairy farmer in a rural area, I know definitely how important it is to make sure that our oldest community members are provided for, because they're so limited in their income and earnings at that point that it makes it difficult for them to be able to have a choice as to what to spend their money on. And a lot of times they will choose, they will make choices that mean that food is last for them. So
Mhm.
ensuring that they get nutritious meals is important. Our Meals on Wheels programs throughout the country do depend a lot on the commodities in this country. And that's why our farm bill, which is a huge amount of money, very
Okay.
little that actually has to do with farms. It is
Okay.
primarily about nutrition and providing nutrition,
Mhm.
for people, whether it be through SNAP, through school nutrition programs, or commodity programs that provide food boxes
Okay.
and the opportunity for people to round out their diets, in a nutritionally balanced way. So, I mean, there's a lot to it. And when it comes to people having questions about why is my food more expensive, and why is this happening, it can seem overwhelming, and especially if you've spent your entire day earning the money to spend on this food, it seems almost even more exhausting to sit there and have to contemplate, why is milk so expensive to me today?
Right.
Why is this price going up? It almost produces anger. And in some cases, I think it does.
Mhm.
I think that it's a justified feeling of being overwhelmed with emotions. But I do encourage people that when you have a question about the food in the stores, or at the markets where you are purchasing them, when you have a question about why is this so expensive, some of the people that you can ask are people like me. There are farmers, there are people that are willing to answer you. It
Right.
may not be the answer you want, but it'll be at
Right.
least the truth. And I think that sometimes that's all we want. We don't want a good feeling answer. We just want to know the truth. And the
Mhm.
fact of the matter is that it is expensive to make food in this country. It is expensive to produce food in every country.
Mhm.
Our country works very hard to try and make sure that those who are producing food, farmers like myself, and businesses that process it and produce it along the way, that they have the advantages necessary to keep the costs down in order to keep the prices down.
Mhm.
In situations like we have today, where there is so much leveraging and weighing in on that one price when we check out of the store, it is really hard to make all that balance and seem comfortable. So I hope people understand and know that when you're paying more for the food in your stores, that it is not a farmer taking advantage of you, and
Right.
it is not even that storekeeper taking advantage of you. It
Oh.
is it is the challenge that we are all faced with right now. And if you are having difficulty making those ends meet, we do have programs and we do have assistance throughout this country, locally, regionally, state, and federally, that are there to help people. A lot of times I think it is difficult for someone who's been self-sufficient to ask for help or look for help, but it's really important that people know that's available. And that's why I think it's so important at our school lunch programs that we don't, in the state of Maine, school lunch is free, meals are free. It is part of coming to school. You come to school, you get your books, you get your education, you have a seat at a desk, and you have food. You shouldn't have to pay extra for it. In other parts of the country, if your bill goes unpaid, they will feed you a specific meal of graham crackers, cheese, and milk and bread. That is what they're going to give you. So
Right.
everybody knows you didn't pay your bill. Is this the country we want? Is this how we want to raise people to know that they don't have a right to be fed? You do
Right.
have a right to be fed if you're a child in this country. And I think that that's one of the most important things people can do, is make sure that food I say it over and over again, accessible, available, and affordable. And part of that comes from making sure that people are paid wages that are commensurate with the cost of living in their area, that
Right.
housing is available and not exclusive, that there are not
Mhm.
barriers to entrance into programs that help train people to earn more, and that it isn't more difficult for someone who is the earner for their family to be able to work their day, meaning that they have accessible and affordable childcare, meaning that they don't have to fear calling in sick, meaning that they have the right to be able to be a person who cares for their community and family and shows up to work. I'm sorry I went off tangent.
No, you did not. No, because all of these, Jenny, plays a huge factor as to how people purchase their products, their commodities, especially such as milk. Like I say, let school turn out. Let the weatherman say it's going to be ice on the ground. For the first thing the child is going to ask for is, "Mommy, I want cereal." Some people use milk in their oatmeal, in their
Yep.
grits. They use milk not just for just for a glass of cookies. They use milk for so many things. When we were coming up, we put milk in our scrambled eggs in order to be able to make it a little bit fluffier and richer. People use milk just about for everything, just like blue jeans. You can take a pair of blue jeans and you can put any color shirt on with that blue jean, it will match. Same thing that goes for milk. When we think about milk, milk is added into, like I stated, my grandmother would put milk into to eggs when we were coming up back in the 60s. She would use milk we had buttermilk. We would make buttermilk and hot cornbread. I mean, people don't talk about that today, but I used to do it. We used to eat that when we were kids. It was like an appetizer, hot and good buttermilk. Oof, I'm not even finna go there. But what I'm saying is, milk is just like wearing a pair of blue jeans. You can match it with anything. Chocolate candy. Or it takes milk to make chocolate. Hershey's. Come on here, JC. Anything. So I mean, and that's the reason why we had another guest that was going to appear on the show, and they were in a farmer, they were agriculture and dealing with meat. But I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think we need to talk about the importance. Meat goes with anything, but now we see that some people are leaving meat and going straight to organic vegetarian meals. So milk is coming as the highest commodity in supply and demand that consumer needs all around the globe. So thank you so much for that. So we want to talk about something that we have always heard about for years, Jenny, and that is milk makes a body good. So we want to see if you can be able to answer this challenge question for us as to, I guess, why farmers may feel that way, because we know that even when babies drink milk, Similac, and other types of
Yeah.
products, they do grow. So, how does it actually impact our bones? I've never asked that before. I don't think I asked that on the
So
other show that we did.
So here's the thing. For most people, or for many people throughout the globe, milk really does do a body good. And the fact is that an 8-ounce serving of milk is a sustainable, nutritious delivery system. It has all these vitamins and nutrients, 13, I believe. And the list keeps growing. We keep finding more and more. But not only does it have it, your body can make use of it. We call it bioavailability, meaning that your body can immediately absorb it and make use of it.
Mhm.
For those who are struggling with lactose issues or allergies, there are obviously hurdles. And I would never tell anybody who has an allergy to just suck it up. That's not right. There are challenges. Finding ways to replicate that nutritive quality of dairy can be a challenge, but it's done and people do it. But the fact of the matter is that we are discovering and unlocking the potential and promise of dairy every single day with scientific research. So a lot of people may have seen studies where it that milk created bone problems. But the fact of the matter is those studies were not really conclusive. The
Right.
fact of the matter remains that if you look globally, worldwide, people depend upon real dairy milk to provide their children with the ability to grow. And it's about providing not just for your body to grow strong, your bones, but it's about developing your brain. It's about giving your brain all the nutrients and fuel it needs to develop as a young infant and baby and child. And that's why we have those dietary guidelines here in the US that so succinctly say dairy is a part of it. And we're hoping that as the dietary guidelines are looked at as they are periodically, they're being looked at over the next year or two, that the wealth of research and peer reviewed data comes into play and people see, yes, it is valuable. But here's the thing, especially when we're talking about the population of the US, when we say dairy and we say milk, we have to recognize the fact that not everybody can digest milk well. They deal with the issues. Lactose intolerance can be a challenge and it can be painful and it can make life miserable. So, what we need to do as dairy farmers and researchers is we need to make sure that we find ways that dairy can be comfortably and well digested and enjoyed by people. And that means that making sure that if we have to remove the lactose, we do. Guess what? We do. When it comes to Cabot cheddars, guess what? They're naturally lactose free. So that lactose is removed with the whey, and then the remainder of it dissipates with aging. So it's safe for people with lactose intolerance, so they can get that really delicious bite of nutrition from that cheese without paying a price, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes with us continuing to expand the equity with which we apply lenses of research, making sure that when we're looking at the people we're studying, that we are looking at a representation of our community. So often and so pervasively, we have ignored so many people purposely that we have created a situation where we are hindering the ability for people to be well fed in this country. So that's one of the things that I think is most important, that as we move forward with dairy and we truly understand how important it is and how helpful it is, that we, in order to maximize its promise and potential, that we make sure we maximize the people that we are feeding and making sure that we pay attention to them. So yes, dairy is good for you. Dairy is a building block and it can be in so many vehicles. So often we think about that 8 ounce glass of milk, but there are other ways as an ingredient. The dairy proteins that can be found in different products. Adding that whey protein to your muffins gives you extra protein. Using that Greek yogurt as a substitute in your cooking amps up your protein as well. And, we find all of these magical mysteries. The more we look into them, they're not that magical and they're not that mysterious. It's just the fact that milk really does do a body good and dairy really does drive an improvement in our health and our well-being and our ability to enjoy our day and improve our lives and those around us.
Oh, okay. That is so awesome. I could talk to you all day long because I'm thinking I'm going to be doing cheese and crackers today, gourmet crackers today, later on. So we're going to have to conclude the show. We got another guest coming up at the top of the hour, but we want you to be able to share with the audience as to how they can be able to connect with Cabot Creameries, how they can be able to follow Cabot Creameries on your websites, on your links, on any upcoming features that you may be having, and on social media platforms. Are there any publications, any articles that you release to the public sector in regards to Cabot Creameries and as to how they can be able to find statistics and facts about your products and brand?
Wonderful. Well, the easiest way to find all of that information is to go to cabotcheese.coop. That's cabotcheese.coop online. Once you're there, you can actually take virtual tours of farms. You can also see all the recipes and find the nutritional information about all of our products. Helpful hints, we have a registered dietitian on staff that works really hard to make sure that they provide nutritional information, not just with our recipes and our products, but also helpful blog posts and articles articles about how you can best utilize are products in your diet to make sure that that your life is good. We also have a department of gratitude. We have the ability for people to explore experiments and opportunities for their children, their school age kids as well. You can learn how to reach out to our farmers like me, as well as you can sign up to become a Cabot Insider, and that's just a matter of providing us with your email, and you can go ahead and receive emails, not too many a month, and perhaps text if you want. And all of that is available on that website. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook as well under Cabot Cheese. Just put it in and you shouldn't have any problem finding it up. And if you're
Oh.
looking for me, my name is Jenni Tilton-Flood. You can just put my name in. You'll generally be able to find me. I'm the mouthy one with all the opinions.
Okay, that is so awesome. So there you have it, everybody. Okay, if you don't get up and go and get you some butter, well, we can't do buttermilk and cornbread. People don't do that no more. But if then you can do the milk, you can do the cheese and crackers, and also they have what you call like party type of. I don't want to say it's catering, but they offer different types of party packs that you can be able to order as well. So just go in and check it out. And we're so thankful, Jenny, that you took the opportunity to be with us on today. And don't forget, this will not be your last time. We want to know about milk. We want to know about what the USDA is saying. We want to know about the Federal Drug Administration. We want to know as to how you are impacting individuals all over the world through your products. And it's virtual. You can purchase it virtual. So guess what? We're going to go in there and we're going to take a run and take a shot to see what we can get. So thank everybody for tuning in with us, and follow us back over to Women Who Rock Investigates at 9 o'clock. And we'll be talking about mental health and suicide prevention. Thank you so much for being our guest on today. Have a wonderful day, Jenny.
You as well, Diane. Thank you.